Hello everyone, this is Hopespoir here. Welcome to another World of Warships commentary. Now this is the first in what I will be considering, or what I will be calling, the host commentary series. These will be commentaries that I make where I am not playing the ship in question, but another player has submitted and sent over their game to me, and I am going to be commentating on it. This particular game is played by VeryHonarbrah from the EU server, who is also on the same clan as myself, so Slap. So you see he's in a triple division here on the team lineup, and there are 7 tier 10 ships on each side, and 5 tier 9s, 4 tier 9s. 4 tier 9s and 1 tier 8. So it's a very high tier game, mostly tier 10s with 4 tier 10 carriers on each side. The implication there, of course, is that you have to be prepared for a lot of aerial spotting. So you have to be prepared that you're going to be detected a lot of times. When in a game without CVs, you might actually be able to go dark. So here we can see there's the AC split on this map as usual. When I see this immediately, I see that there are 2 battleships on A here, where Banham is, including his division, with 2 cruisers and 2 destroyers. The other side has 3 battleships, which is more than the A side, but only 1 destroyer and no cruisers. This makes me slightly concerned about the C side immediately right off the bat. Obviously, they do have quite a lot of firepower in the 3 battleships, and they do have the use of a destroyer. But with the nature of this map and not being able to see a lot of times the approach of the enemies on the other side of the island at sea, I would be a little concerned. Okay, now because it is a carrier game, just what I said, the spotting this time is working in the favor of this team. You can actually see where all the enemy ships are, and I would ask viewers to take a quick look at the minimap at this time. Okay, so what I see here is that the enemy has 2 destroyers at sea, 1 cruiser, and 3 battleships. So they match the 3 battleships and 1 destroyer that the friendly team has at sea, plus they have another cruiser, well, a 2nd destroyer and a cruiser, the Worcester, which obviously means that this side of the map, A, is where the friendlies have a numerical advantage. So in this case, I would say that the strategy, and it's hard to make a strategy before enough of the enemy is spotted. You can kind of make a preliminary strategy, but until the majority of the ships are spotted, you can't make really a final kind of decision on what the strategy should be. At this point in time, I would say that the strategy should be that the push should happen at A, and C side should try to delay the enemy at C best they can. It looks like C is already going to be capped. So in this case, delaying is not even going to mean delaying the cap at this point. It should be they should delay the enemy team at C from pushing that flank, coming around, and then getting surrounding the friendly team and getting a crossfire on them. And then this side with the friendly division, with Banham here pushing up in the Henri, they do need to push this side. And they need to kill off the Fearsome Conqueror that Banham is currently engaging. Especially since the enemy Benson spotted is fairly far back. So this means that Banham is still going to have the advantage of being able to go dark fairly reasonably well, hopefully, of course, keeping in mind that the enemy CVs may be spawning him. So what I see at the C side on the mini-map, which is the other cap, I thought that they should be playing a delaying action on that side. And instead what's happened is the Jean Bart and the Izumo are pushing forward. Now, just a couple minutes ago, very kind of good for our team was that one of the enemy destroyers at sea was actually killed. And then moments later, unfortunately, the Ognavoy has died as well. This is not such a horrible result, to be honest, at this point, because they're at such a disadvantage at sea that having killed off an enemy DD is already a good start. What is really bad at that side is that the Jean Bart and the Uzumo have now completely overextended. As you can see, they're actually about to meet a Lion Alsace, or they are actually already engaging some of them, I'm sure by now. Jean Bart, Alsace, and Lion at sea, as well as a Z-52, and the Worcester is supporting them as well. You can see that they are pushing hard, the enemy is, at sea. And basically, it's about to become a 5-on-2. So it's going to be the Jean Bart and the Izumo versus all those ships. Now, the friendly Conqueror on that side, he's actually not in a really bad spot. He might have been able to kind of drive a little forward, considering what the Jean Bart and Izumo have done. He could have gone a little more forward and then turned. But all in all, I actually think that he's kind of staying in a position right now. I'm assuming he's engaging the ships over there, he's shooting at them, but he's keeping in mind that he's going to have to keep his distance and run. And now the Jean Bart at sea has died, which is not a surprise. The Izumo is surely going to die as well. Very luckily, I think, he actually manages to kill the Zed. So at the very least, on that flank, they managed to kill both destroyers. Perhaps with the help of some of the CVs. And then now the Izumo goes down to the Worcester, which is not surprising, right? So they completely overextended on that side. So when you meet such overwhelming numbers, you know, after the enemy has been clotted, you have to kind of at that point decide or adjust what your strategy should be. The strategy should have been to try to delay the enemy at that flank while taking minimal losses or minimal damage, to preserve their ability to engage later on, and then to fall back. Unfortunately, 3 of the ships went there and got killed, and now the Conqueror is falling back on that flank, which is the smart thing to do. This flank needs to continue to push. I haven't been addressing this flank because basically, since I said they need to push, nothing much has changed. Banham here is continuing to be about as aggressive as an Henri can be. He's inflicting damage on the Conqueror and the Kurfürst. At this point, having lost those 2 battleships, it's absolutely imperative that this flank manages to hurt or hopefully kill off these 2 battleships before the major engagement occurs with the enemy coming from the other flank. The other ships on this A flank, including Banham's divmates, they're in the Montana, the Hindenburg, and the Friedrich der Große at A. They really need to move forward towards B and support that. Now, the good thing is that they've actually managed to cap B, the Yugumo and the Shimakaze. This comment is coming a little late, but a little while ago what happened was there was an enemy Zao approaching B along with a Benson, and luckily, I think it was the Midway or maybe combined air attack on this side managed to kill the Zao. You can see he's dead right behind where the last spotted sign for the Benson is, the last spotted marker for the Benson in B. Just above him, just north of him, there's a dead ship symbol or sign. That is the Zao that got killed. Now, when that Zao got killed, I would really have liked the Shimakaze and Yugumo to push that Benson and just kill him off with guns and or torpedoes. That would have been extremely helpful, and that would also have allowed them more freedom of movement, more freedom to launch torps at the enemy ships that are coming in. Unfortunately, what has actually occurred now, you can actually see that it just faded off the screen. The enemy Benson in B actually managed to kill the Yugumo with a torpedo, which is horrible. What they really should have done with a 2-to-1 advantage, and Nishima and Yugumo can easily outgun a Benson together, they should have just really charged in there and killed that Benson. Right? And what that would have allowed, now the Benson has reappeared in B, now you can see him. Now, if they had done that, it would have allowed the Yugumo and Shima to just dump torps at the enemy ships that are just coming in now. You can see them approaching B in a big cluster. Now, a Yugumo and Shimakaze dumping torps there on any kind of reasonable torp dump could have inflicted some good damage, and then they would have some freedom of navigation there without having to worry about the Benson, and they would have been able to kind of fallen back and then just supported the friendly ships going into engage a B with torp dumps whenever they could. Unfortunately, what has happened now is the Shimakaze has also gotten himself killed at B. That's very bad for the friendly team. It could have been so much better, right? Like if they just rushed the Benson and killed them off with their guns, Shimakaze and Yugumo could have done that very quickly together. Then they could have been alive now, and the enemy Benson would be dead. That would be very, very good. Okay. So things are getting desperate now. One of Banham's teammates has just died there. Banham's basically doing what he really has to do here. He's trying to kill off the Kerr first. The Conqueror died. If I remember correctly here, I don't think Banham actually killed the Conqueror as in the last shot, but he did do the majority of damage to the Conqueror. He was firing him for a long time. And he's lost the Kerr first behind the island, so he won't be able to finish him off now, but he should kind of keep in mind that the Kerr first is there near death, and he should work on killing off the Conqueror. The Kerr first, sorry. As soon as he can. In the meantime, obviously, since things are getting a little desperate, he should inflict as much damage as he can on the enemy ships in B. Especially since, obviously, the battleship in his division, there driven by Boner, is surely to be undercome. I mean, he's still got a lot of health, but he's definitely going to be undercoming a lot of enemy fire very soon. He's going to require all the help he can get. The Conqueror, the friendly Conqueror, is also still quite healthy there. So things aren't looking horrible. Okay, so the Kerr first has reappeared. He's still on fire. It's possible that this fire could kill him, but you should, at this point, Banham should not assume that the fire will. It could easily get damage conned or just go out on its own before. And that's exactly what happened. So this last salvo was completely necessary. So it's very smart that he made that salvo and managed to kill him off instead of assuming the fire was going to kill him, which it did not. Okay, so now that the Conqueror and Kerr first are dead, Banham has to obviously help to engage the center here as quickly as he can, and especially while Boner is still alive there, and he still has quite a bit of health. So obviously, not only is Boner taking a lot of attention, which allows Banham to fire more freely and perhaps end up in the open more freely without having to worry about being shot at. Obviously, also, Boner's probably doing a lot of spotting there, right? So when he dies, it's probably going to be difficult for Banham to get continually spotted targets. The CVs will probably spot some, but aside from that, you know, it'd be up to the Grosse and the Conqueror, and they're pretty far back at the moment. So when Boner dies, which he just has done, it's largely going to be up to the CVs to spot there. He can't really drive in there, so he's basically just going to have to wait for spotting on the enemy and then just inflict as much damage as possible. The De Grosse is actually extremely healthy. You can see he just took a bombing run from the midway, I believe it was, there on the right side of the screen, and then the Conqueror is also still fairly healthy. So as long as that engagement occurs, Banham should get spotting, and he's going to have to do he has to do as much as he can with any spotting that he gets here. What would be kind of a bit disaster, obviously, is if spotting just kind of goes dark and things get really desperate and he's forced to push in there. It's not what Henri is good at. Okay, luckily right now it seems like the enemy is going to remain spotted fairly well. So now he's just going to have to do as much damage as possible. Okay, so that's basically kind of the current tactical situation is not likely to change. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about this hosting series, where I'm hosting commentaries for games from other players. So if anyone has an interesting game, I would be very happy to take a look at it. At some point eventually I am going to have to make a decision as to whether or not I use a particular video. Whether I do or not is not going to depend on the player whether the player is good or what I think of the player. And if I choose not to use a game, it's not going to be that that player's not good or that game's not good. Ultimately, these are entertainment videos. They're YouTube videos. The game has to be entertaining, and I have to have, so there's kind of like two requirements. The game has to be entertaining, and I guess in terms of value, right? So it has to have value for entertainment, but not only that. It also has to have value, like strategic or tactical value, and not necessarily in terms of even that particular player's play. I mean, I have commented a little bit on Banham's play here, but what I have commented most on is just the overall the strategic and tactical situation of the game and the teams, right? So I was commentating on which side was weak, where the enemy was spotted, where the forces were, and what implication that has on the strategy and whatnot. And also, of course, I do think that this is an entertaining game that Banham's played. He's already up to 260,000 damage, but once again, it's not about damage. I have a lot of games where I do a lot of damage, which I don't choose to make videos of because they just don't have enough entertainment value. Oh, look at this CV drop, this friendly CV drop. No, this is really funny. So Banham gets cross-dropped here from the friendly and enemy CV. And he takes 4 friendly torpedoes, which were actually... I can understand that the friendly CV probably felt like the situation was desperate and he needed to try to help Banham there as much as possible, but the drop it really didn't have any hope of hitting the enemy Worcester. But what it did have a really good chance of doing was hitting Banham. As a matter of fact, I don't see how Banham could have avoided those torpedoes without ending up in in a situation that was tactically just as poor. So his two choices there were either to make this turn for position and take the friendly torpedoes, or basically run aground and get stuck. Neither of them were... I mean, they're both... It's basically a choice between two really bad choices. I think Banham felt that there's a little desperation here with 330 left and being down on points. He didn't want to have to get stuck there. These torpedoes don't have enough distance to arm, and that's why they didn't hit him. Right, so I think Banham decided, and I think it was the correct decision, that it was better to take the friendly torpedoes, especially with 2 heals remaining at the time, and keep moving forward. It was basically the only way to win. The friendly torpedoes there were an absolute disaster. It was definitely a bit of a misdrop. I can understand the draw, how that happened though, from the mentality of the siege driver. He was probably thinking, "Oh man, that Worcester is going to murder that Henri if I need to help him out," and he tried to make the best drop he could. It was a rushed decision. It turned out to be really bad. Okay, now you can see that Banham has 18,500 left. And he's going to take a torpedo on the nose. It should not kill him, but... Oh! A detonation. A detonation with 330,000 damage. He does manage to kill off that CV, but it's not going to be enough. At this point, there's 2 minutes left, and the only way to victory is the friendly Hakuryu and Midway have to kill that Audacious, and it's just not going to happen in this amount of time. It's going to be a points loss, and oh, how painful is that? So, if that detonation did not occur, it would have been very, very likely, the very, very likely outcome that they would have won this game. The friendlies would have won this game. I'm not sure if Banham would have been able to get back out there to really engage the Audacious much. Probably could have gone up to, unknown, maybe 340, 350k, maybe 360k, something like that by the time he cleared the island, to kind of do a really hard carry on that game. But unfortunately, he got a detonation at the worst possible time. He definitely would have survived that torp hit on the nose. And we're just watching the end here. The Audacious just has way too much health to be killed here. This is not a bad drop here. He gets 5 torpedo hits, but it's just not going to be near enough. There's only 50 seconds left. And looking at the mini-map, if the Hakuryu had planes arriving now, a full squadron arriving now, probably would be enough, but it's just going to arrive too late. I believe that you can see the Hakuryu's torpedo squadron just coming up on the Audacious now, but there's only 25 seconds left. He's not going to have time to finish him off. It's such a close game, even with that detonation. And this must have been so painful for Bantam. Okay, so this was the first host commentary ever, and hopefully I'll get the chance to do more. So like I said, ultimately it comes down to, see, that's how close it was. 6,000. Okay, so now I'm just putting up the results screen here. I asked Bantam, I'm doing this a little late after I received it, so I wish I had a detailed report and a team score as well, but unfortunately this is all that I received from Bantam. But just for everyone to see the results screen, 219 hits, 11 fires, 11 citadels. So this was a very good game. Good number of citadels, good number of fires. I believe that there must have been quite a lot of fire damage on this game. Obviously 11 citadels is going to net you a lot of damage, but with 219 total hits and 1 torpedo hit on target, there must also have been a lot of fire damage. I kind of wish I could have seen how much that was. A very painful loss. 330,000, over 330,000 damage just to lose by detonation at the end is horrible. And even with that detonation, the enemy CVs almost pulled that one back. 6,000 HP left on the one remaining enemy carrier in that game. I'm actually happy that I didn't play this game. I would be very, very upset at this loss, as Bantam was. So just a final note that I want to make. I do look forward to, and I hope that I will be doing more host commentaries for people's games in the future. If anyone has a good game, please do contact me and I'll happily take a look at it. Once again, it's not any kind of insult or any statement on the player or the game if I decide not to use a video. Ultimately, the game has to bring value in 2 places, right? One is entertainment value. Watching the game in and of itself has to be entertaining. It has to be fun. Aside from that, there has to be also commentary value for myself. So if someone is just doing a lot of damage, but I don't have much to talk about, then there isn't enough value in that for myself. Even if it's semi-entertaining. I have to have a game where just from watching the game, I can see things that I can comment on in terms of strategy and tactics, and hopefully with an evolving situation in the game, which this game did have, right? So obviously I made some strategic assessments, and then I was commentating on what was tactically happening, and then this situation changed over time, and I can make new comments on that. So that brings a lot of value as well. So it has to have those 2 things, and if it doesn't, then I just may not have enough to talk about to make a video. So it's at the end of the day, it's not an insult to anyone. So if anyone does have an interesting game, please send it forward and watch it. And if I find that I have enough to talk about, I'll be very happy to do it. Okay, so thank you for watching and see you next time. This is Hopespoir signing off. Bye.